Already underway, huh?
Yeah. To open the meeting for a public hearing, it's Wednesday, May 4th, 2022. The time now is 6:15 p.m. Council members present, Councilor Jessica Chilton, Councilor Stephen Topaz, Councilor Patrick Bickle, and I'm Councilor Doug Morton, filling in for Mayor Rick Shaw, who is absent. Got an open public hearing. The topic is vacation of the entire 7th Street right-of-way, South St. Helens addition, lying northeast on Castor Road, right-of-way.
Yeah, the legal description is a mouthful.
Oh, well, yeah. Sorry.
No, it's okay. So this is for a vacation of right-of-way. We've seen these before. I've talked about this one before. This one is based on a motion of the council, which is a little different than the petition. The area proposed to be vacated is highlighted in yellow there. And it's a little bit different because it was a motion versus a petition where the person who would like the vacated area gets signatures from a variety of people. Well, it's a little different when the government does it. And so I'll just go through some of the findings real fast, and then we'll look at the exhibits. So have there been any objections or other comments about the request? No. We did talk with Columbia River PUD directly because they have power lines going through there, and we'll talk about that here in a bit. The council did initiate the motion. That was on April 6th. Now, normally when it's the consent, you have to acquire a certain percentage of the area of the affected area, and there's a map in there that we'll look at pretty soon. In this case, we have to determine that a majority of the owners of the affected area have not objected in writing. And let's actually start going through the report now. Some of these graphics will help explain some of this stuff. Yeah, don't worry about that. If you can scroll down. Okay, yeah, so this is the affected area. Now, the majority of this area, the great majority, is city owned. So it is impossible, based on city ownership, for the majority of people within this dashed red line to object. So we're essentially bulletproof in that regard, which is nice because we can't always say that. And it's part of the public safety facility, and obviously we'd like that to go smoothly. The other thing that we have to, the other box that we have to check is if it abuts a subject property, is there evidence that will substantially affect the market value? In this case, it doesn't abut any other property, so again, we're bulletproof in that regard. We provided the proper notice that is in the record. So then the classic question, the public interest will be prejudiced. So first of all, we've already thought about this, which makes this decision even easier. If we go down a couple slides, yeah, that one's perfect. So the council adopted a parcelization framework plan for the St. Helens Industrial Business Park. And this right-of-way is right there. The significance of that is it is not shown as a street or right-of-way that is necessarily needed. So essentially with this plan, we kind of said, well, we don't necessarily need that as a right-of-way. And so we could look at that and some of the considerations there, use it here. Another thing that we've done because of the public safety facility is we've surveyed it. So we have a lot more acute data than we normally have in these circumstances. And if we go down, so the yellow is the shape of the area vacated. And because the survey, there's a lot of lines, it's very busy. And I did this just to really highlight some very basic things. So yellow is the area to be vacated. You have some of our utilities, city storm, city sanitary sewer, and then power in red. And I outlined this rock bluff. The rock bluff is important because what does this right of way do? It hits a rock wall, doesn't it? So that's evidence, well, I don't know if that path makes so much sense. That's more justification that it's not necessarily needed. And, you know, you can see that the sewer line goes around that. So it kind of veers off of that path. The city will have ownership, so we don't need to worry about granting easements to ourselves for those utilities. The one thing though that we needed to focus on is the overhead power. Now, based on the preliminary plans that we've received or we've developed for the public safety facility, it's possible that some of the poles identified by these angles may need to be moved. And Columbia River PUD noted that this is a higher type of line. I can't remember the term. Primary line. And that for a primary line, they need larger equipment to access that. Right now, there is a 16-foot easement for power outside of the right of way. Columbia River PUD is requesting a 50-foot wide easement. And the way the condition is written is that that would be a condition of land use approval as part of the public safety facility or another development on the abutting properties. You know, there's chances are pretty dang good the public safety facility will go through, but you never know what's going to happen, and could be something different. The odds are against that, but you never know. So we have a condition in there to make sure that's a condition of approval, because we won't know where to put the easement until we know exactly where we want to relocate those poles. So that's essentially the condition, if you will, is retaining that easement, a part of a subsequent development proposal. And I'll do my best to take up the 15 minutes. Kathy just whispered to me, please don't. And that's probably my cue to shut up. So questions?
In this right of way, is anything planned to be put? Or is it just a right of way? Is there going to be a building in this right of way?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. Kathy, if you can go up. Yeah, so the reason we need to vacate it. And there was an example of the site plan, part of the notice.
Right there, the side of the public safety facility, right?
Yeah, so this is a portion of that right of way. It goes back a little bit and up. And as you know, this design has evolved over the last, well, more than a year. And as we've kind of looked at it and considered our options, one thing is we have this 100-year floodplain. And so we're trying to stay out of that. And then you have the rock bluff here. You have this right of way here. And so basically the building has slowly moved in a south eastern direction. And if you look at the right of way edge, you know, a little bit of the building may need to be in there, along with walkways. Now, walkways can be in public rights of way, but because of the needs here and they're proposing stormwater facility on this side, so this is going to be a contiguous development. It's necessary to eliminate the right of way. Early on, we were talking about just using the right of way as it was, but as things started to shift that way, we kind of finally capitulated and said, well, we're going to have to vacate it. And so it's a direct result of public safety facility design efforts thus far.
But
Boy.
there's nothing in the right of way, it's.
Oh.
I'm worried about something being built to block off the right of way.
Yeah, so if we go to the survey, and this is at the very end, go to the very, very last slide. Because that'll give us the one that's in color, that's easiest to see. It's the very end. Yeah, there we go. So this really shows us really well, both the line work and just looking at the photos. So we have some of the utilities, we have some of the trees, we have the rock, and this is the northerly extent of that. So other than, some buildings associated with this apartment complex, which will be impacted by this request, I can tell you with 100% confidence, no. Any more questions?
So the PUD line is passing through PGE territory because they're working with PGE on the power service to the building.
But that can be moved. If there's a building that you can't put a pole in a building, but if there's, we own the space next to it, right?
Yeah, a service, now who services it, that's a territory question. But we know that, and
Another question, but
if you look at the poles, they all say PUD on them, and it's a primary line that feeds to 15th Street over here, so it exists. Trying to beg them to give a power rather than PUD or PG, that's a separate matter, but we know the line's there, so.
it's one of the many complexities about this site and the project.
Yeah.
Any questions from staff by chance? More from council?
Is the rec center, how does it get power currently? In the same area? That-
It's PGE.
Oh, it is, okay. It's just what John's thought was, that was it though.
That's it? Close.
We should, we want to make sure we don't have any public comments. It is a public hearing, and so,
Okay.
okay. And nobody's online, so that's covered.
Ready to close?
Yep.
I'm going to close our public hearing on May 4th. Good evening. It's Wednesday, May 4th, 2022, and the time is 6:30 p.m. We're here tonight for a public forum for Great Cliffs Waterfront Park and Water Facility presentation. Council members that are present, Councilor Jessica Chilton, Councilor Stephen Topaz, Councilor Patrick Bickle, and myself, Council President Doug Morton, filling in for Mayor Rick Schell, who could not be here. Since I already opened the public forum, the topic is Great Cliff Waterfront Park and Water Facility presentation. And tonight we have Jen Dimshow to facilitate that presentation.
Thanks, Council President. It's not a huge audience tonight, but this will be recorded, so hopefully people can watch if they want to and provide feedback to me after the fact. So we're here today because originally in the Parks and Trails Master Plan from 2015, it recommended a fishing pier at Great Cliffs Waterfront Park. And it also talked about that being a handicap accessible fishing pier. And it also recommended making improvements to make it easier to launch kayaks from this park. And so in pursuit of both of those things, we started engaging with the Oregon State Marine Board, who has a technical assistance program to design and permit facilities. And so you'll see their logo on this presentation, and that's because they prepared it. I'm just regurgitating the information that they've prepared. And so if there are questions about the specific permitting or design aspects that I can't answer, I may have to refer to them. But ultimately, they will design and assist the city to permit a facility at no cost to us. So this is a great program for us. It's a great benefit. They have grant programs available after the designing and permitting is finished. And so we will have a way to actually get this built. So the goal of today's public forum is to gather feedback from the public on this preferred design that you'll see. It's the last slide of this presentation, so I'm going to kind of build up to the design. And with that, we can go to the next. So first, Great Cliffs Park, there's a nice aerial here of where it's at. This is the dead end of River Street, the cul-de-sac there, and the park is just off of that cul-de-sac. You're okay. So the St. Helens Marina is just south of this park. You can also see on this aerial, Kathy, can you move your cursor just over slightly? There you go. So these are the new restroom facilities that were installed in 2019. And then there's some parking improvements as part of a grant that we completed in 2019. This is currently a loading zone for launching off the shoreline here. So you can actually park here, unload your kayak, and shoreline launch out of this park. But we're hoping to make that easier with an in-water facility so that you're not just launching with gravel into the river. That gravel area will stay. You still can shoreline launch if that's your preference. This in-water facility will just be another way to get your boat into the water. And then for people who've been in the park, this is kind of that upper area. You can walk your dogs up there, and then there's a staircase that leads up to the neighborhood there. So that's a Great Cliffs rundown. So the Marine Board did a survey probably a year ago now, or maybe less than a year, and they came up with these elevations that you'll see on this slide. So the river has quite a variation in elevation from, seasonal variation, as we know. So one of the things I wanted to point out on this slide is that there's an MLLW at 6.3 feet. So that's medium, low water. So at its lowest point on average, it's 6.3 feet. And then the observed extreme high is 20.3 feet. So the distance is about 14 feet in variation. So this in-water facility accommodates those different varying levels of water throughout the year. Just a point of reference, the flood of 96 was 27.3, and the pillars used in this design will be 6 feet higher than that 96 flood, so that you don't have docks floating off of the columns that you're putting in the water. So there's another photo there that you can kind of see the shoreline of the park. Hopefully you've been there. If you're at this forum, hear about this park, you've probably been there. But the goal of this project is to provide fishing and paddle docks that are both accessible and permittable. So the next slide shows the number of permits that you need to permit an in-water facility. It's a lot of permitting and a lot of different agencies, state, federal, and local, that care about in-water facilities. And so the number of permits and the number of agencies that care means the design has to incorporate their feedback. And so there's some components that are inflexible and not subject to change, just because in order to permit the facility, you have to include certain aspects. I'm not the expert on these permits. So again, like if questions kind of veer in that direction, I'll probably just have to get back to you. But
Jenny, this list was given to you basically by the Marine Corps, correct?
yes.
So we assume they know what they're doing.
Yeah, exactly. They permit these facilities across Oregon. And that's why they have a technical assistance program. Yep, next slide. So building up to the design, there's common features in all of them. So first, we want this thing to be accessible. So we looked at widths of the routes leading to the facility, making sure they're wide enough for wheelchairs. We want to limit the slope of the ramp down to the facility for easiest access if you're using a wheelchair. Like penetrating decking, so that's this photo here. The Marine Board traditionally would build concrete docks. And over time, they learned that that is not good for protecting endangered salmon. Having shadows over the water is good for predators to get baby salmon. And so they started permitting this light penetrating decking every 50% of the dock would have this light penetrating decking as opposed to a solid concrete. And so that's kind of the trend. And then all of the designs have a double gangway. So a double gangway is just having two separate features with kind of columns separating them. And the next slide shows a better example of a double gangway. So this is gangway 1, and then this is gangway 2. And then gangway 1 stays stationary for the most part, while gangway 2 goes up and down with the tides of the river. So I wanted to point out on this slide that under normal circumstances, you will be able to paddle underneath the gangway to get around. So when we look at the design, you're looking down on it 2D, but in reality, you can actually go underneath the gangway, which just provides more options when you're in a kayak trying to get where you want to go. Next slide. So some other design features. So we talked about having an accessible fishing pier. This is an example of a fishing pier in another community. The one difference would be that there would be a section of the railing that would be lower, so you can just roll up on a wheelchair and still fish off the pier. And then this is the second feature, so the submerged paddlecraft launch ramp. So these are two photos of an example in Westport, Oregon, that the Marine Board helped design and permit. And this launch ramp allows you to be submerged in the water, but not fully. So you're kind of like halfway in the water, halfway not in the water while you're on this ramp. And it's 30 feet in length. So that's, if you have a smaller kayak, that's large enough for 2 kayaks to kind of stage. So if you have a family and children and they have smaller kayaks, you can kind of both be in this ramp at once. And then it also has this transition bench feature. So you can roll up in a wheelchair and kind of transition onto the bench and then into your kayak, which is much easier than going all the way from the dock into the kayak. This is a design feature that the Marine Board has come up with, and it's worked really well in Westport. And so we want to be another, another location that has this amenity. All right, so next slide. And I threw this in, so the next slide is the actual design. This is a survey. I know you can't read all the lettering on it, but it just shows the proximity of the park here to the actual St. Helens Marina. And we're going to be looking at the facility all right here. So for context, the distance we are out in the water is actually about half of the full St. Helens Marina length. So we're just gonna be looking in this area. So we go to the next slide. Okay. So here's the preferred concept design that we're hoping to get some feedback on today and then beyond today if you email me. So just to orient you, here's the park again. This is the loading zone that I talked about in the park. And then that's where the gangway will come from. So we ended up on this concept by meeting with a group of stakeholders. This has been before the Parks and Recreation Commission and the Planning Commission for comments. The Marine Board prepared 3 different concepts, and all of them had sort of different orientations of that launch, the paddlecraft launch feature, and then the fishing docks. And we ended up with this orientation. So I'm going to talk about why the features are kind of positioned the way they are, and then I'll open it up if there's any comments. So first, so the double gangway. We went with one that's 200 feet in total length. The longer it is, the less slope you end up having. So we want to reduce slope so that you're not going down a super steep ramp. And so this 200 feet long will have a less than 8% slope when the water is at its lowest. So that's great. Some of the feedback we had during our engagement with the groups I just mentioned is a preference for a passing lane or some type of notch to allow for resting if you're coming up and you need a break and you want to get out of the one-way kind of travel. So we're hoping that the Marine Board will incorporate that feedback in the final design. Like I mentioned, we have to permit it. So who knows if that's feasible, but we can at least ask the Marine Board to incorporate some type of passing lane. The fishing docks, they're oriented north, and that's to avoid having lines getting tangled with paddlers who are, heading out. So we know, the water heads downstream. And so if the lines are going that direction, we can reduce conflict. We also prefer this design because it gets the anglers out in deep water, which is the preference for fishing. There is an opportunity to slightly adjust the angle. So we can go like slightly north or slightly south to just change the orientation of that fishing pier slightly. And lastly, we went with the paddle docks and ramp facing this orientation to maximize the breakwater that you would experience when you're trying to get your kayak into that ramp. So one of the things that the group decided on was to swap this kind of transition zone, which is the area where you would stage your kayak, you're getting ready to get into the launch. We would swap that facility with the ramp so that there's even more protection into that ramp, more protection from wind, prevailing winds, and current. I think I hit on all the features, and you can see that this is that lead penetrating decking intermixed with the concrete docks. I also wanted to point out that this is the target line for the permitting agencies. So we want to be at least 20 feet below that targeted elevation. And so that's why you see the facility out that far. I think that's all I wanted to mention on there. It's kind of a lot. But I think I'll just open it up for questions and comments at this point.
I think we have anyone on Zoom.
Wait, let me ask.
Any individuals in council chambers would like to speak on this comment?
On this picture, it shows the Columbia River there. I thought there's actually a dock there across from that. Where it shows here that the river is there. I thought that that the marina extends down to that point.
Could you go up a slide, Kathy? That one. So the area we're talking about is right here.
And so
And here's the
marina-
marina.
So in before it.
Yep.
Okay.
In that one photo, you can barely see a little bit of the marina dockage at the very bottom of it.
And these little pink dots, they're really faint, but those are existing pilings. And if you go to the next slide again. Sorry, Kathy, we keep making you go back and forth. You can see those existing pilings right along here. So it's basically the extent of the former docks that used to be there on those pilings.
You
And
see,
like-
oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say, and likely, with permitting, you may have to remove some of those pilings as part of our mitigation for putting new ones in. And so the ones that are closest to this facility would probably be the first to go to minimize impacts as you're trying to get your canoe or kayak in there.
So you see how you can see just a little bit of the dockage there at the bottom.
Yeah.
It's so little that it could be anything, but
Anybody? Okay, great.
I have a question.
Yeah.
With the expansion of the park, we're looking at, you know, hopefully an increased use of the park. Is parking adequate?
Yeah, it's a question the Marine Board asked us too. You know, we sometimes see that lot fill up on nice days, people eating lunch, and there's no in-water facility. So we know parking needs will increase. And that's also why, you know, Jacob's working on increasing parking in the right of way adjacent to this park. We fortunately, we have public rights of way that are undeveloped and can, you know, hold more cars if we develop them. So, yeah, we're working on it.
do you remember, we talked about that briefly at this planning center in my annual
Yeah.
report.
Yeah.
So that,
We're kind of talking about that for, the need is there for Sand Island too, and I mean just downtown overall, but
Yeah.
if we're increasing, you know, this cool new feature of this park, I would anticipate we're gonna have a lot more visitors to the park, so.
You mentioned also the existing piling. I know that at least one of those, possibly two, are home to Osprey.
Yes.
And so I would imagine the permitting for that would be quite extensive.
And you're at the end.
It actually got brought up, gosh, was that in our Parks and Recreation meeting? Someone brought that up. Maybe, no, it was the Planning Commission.
Yeah.
Commissioner Toski brought that up, and Dan was very quick to say, osprey are not protected species, but salmon are, and that's why you see those columns out there with the white spoke on them. That's because the permitting agencies don't want osprey to nest because they eat salmon, which are protected. So the permitting agencies actually would prefer that osprey are not nesting near salmon habitat.
Interesting.
I learned that too. I didn't know.
The osprey drop off those pilings directly on the salmon. It's a good hunting spot.
yes,
Yeah.
it is.
But you have a couple of problems that I see. You have a public ramp that people put boats inside it. And if you have a sailboat coming out of there, it's gonna be a game. Normally you could shoot through the pilings and now you run into that.
Yeah, we don't want any sort of larger, I mean, this is only intended for paddlecraft.
Yeah, but you've got a public landing where people are putting in their motorboats or sailboats or coming out of the marina.
Oh, I see, the proximity to the
Yes.
marina.
And I'm one of those people that come sailing out of there and ducking those pilings and sneaking out.
So that's kind of why I include the survey. This features much further inland than the marina would be. I don't think you would be coming to this area if you
Yeah,
were
you do.
watching.
When the wind's right and you're trying to sneak in, I think it's a good location.
Yeah.
But that is, the thing that I'm really bringing up is people who are gonna bring sailboats out of there versus the people who've got sailboats in the marina. They're gonna need parking spots. Handicap are gonna come with kayaks on trailers, not stuck on top of their cars.
If they can't guide themselves out of that marina, they have no business out on the river. I'm sorry.
But that's true, but we see some of those people.
In a way, the pilings that are there kind of keep that area a little bit more
Yeah,
protected too.
exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or what they do is they come out and hang on the piling, set the sails and sail off it. The pilings aren't gonna be a problem. The number of cars with trailers going to that ramp down there, that's, I think, gonna be much more of a condition. And the people who are handicapped with kayaks are gonna come with equipment, not
Yeah,
lumping off the top of the car.
The park is definitely constrained as far as parking, but we're kind of working with what we've got.
Well,
At this point, we're in public comment.
Yeah.
I haven't opened it up to counselors, just a couple of questions for clarification. Of where Jen is with her delivery. And we've got two new individuals who've come into the chambers, and if you'd like to, we'd like to invite you to comment on the development at Great Cliffs. Do you care to?
I do have a question. Will it be fishing access on it? Will that have fishing for salmon and steelhead? Fishing for whatever is over there. I'm not familiar with the fish migration patterns in the area, and if there'll actually be potential to salmon fish from that area, because there's very limited salmon fishing.
I haven't heard
on
that
the
you can
bank.
get, yeah, I haven't heard that you can get salmon off of there. I've heard other types of fish. The mayor may know too. What you
Say if Columbia's open.
The
The river's open.
Okay, that'd be a good cut.
Right into the Multnomah Channel right there.
Probably, it's not Multnomah Channel though, so it's river regulations. It'd definitely be a good sturgeon and salmon, yes, there's a ledge right there that is known to have leaded salmon caught.
Yeah, that's what would be important to me, for sure.
Me too.
Any other comments from visitors who walked in late on this session? Anything else?
I like it. Sastowski. Think it's great. It's gonna be a lot of fun. And, I like the idea of more parking over, off of, River going back, in that area that there's considerably parking up in that area. But this concept, I love it. It's gonna be great for the city.
Any other public comment? Council, would you like to make any additional comments, or staff?
Yeah,
John?
one of the things, Jenny did a great job going through the project there. That we didn't touch on is the funding strategy and how this thing might be paid for. Thought is that, and Marine Board does all the engineering, design, permitting work. They're gonna be a potential grant source, and then there's Department of Fish and Wildlife. So there'll be two grants. Both of them have matches of, they pay for 75% of it, we pay for 25%. So that'd be 25% of the construction cost, which is, it seems like a pretty good deal for the city.
Thank you, John.
okay. Remember this first picture here
Of the park.
of the park? That really shows why you need that ramp. If you take a look at that, at the end of the parking lot, it looks like a great piece of stuff between the water and the parking lot. That's mud.
Yeah.
Ugly, sticky, deep mud. This ramp that you're building makes it fantastic to get your equipment in. But unless the river's high, you can't launch anything from there.
And as we know, most people launch in the summer. They want to go out when the river's low.
Yeah, so that this is, there's gonna be a fair amount of boat traffic coming out of between the docks and people launching. But obviously, the Marine Board has looked at that because they understand boats coming off for launching. So that's been covered because of the knowledge of the Marine Board. So the traffic, best question for where to put the launching of the kayaks at the end of that. Can this thing be changed if the river pattern gets in the way,
I mean, ideally, we would deal with that at the design phase because you're permitting a facility as shown. You wouldn't want to just make changes later. You'd have to go through the permit process all over again.
Well, the thing I see in the summer, the wind comes from the north and the water's going the other direction. Which makes the launch ramp good because the current pushes you against the dock for a kayak.
Yes. You're touching on exactly why we ended up with the design as we did.
And will increase the number of people kayaking. because they're not worried about the kayak going away from them.
Yeah, this would help reduce barriers to the not, beginner kayakers for sure.
And I assume that picture you have with the funny ramp, that ramp sinks, the kayak is high and hard, the people with a wheelchair get into it and the bottom sinks out from underneath them.
Yeah, those notches are kind of semi-submerged, they're kind of V-shaped. I think that's what you're referring to.
Right. So again, for somebody who's handicapped, that entranceway is a real problem. I'm wondering, do they move after you get in or do you know?
The V-shaped
Yeah.
thing, I don't think they move.
They have a handrail, so
Yeah.
you're pulling yourself out.
When you get a 400-pound person, you're not gonna slide on it on the grass. If it sinks, you can slip easily out. Do you know if it's ramp?
Yeah, it's sloped. Yeah, so the
So
further
the
you
heavy
get.
guys go at that end and the light guys go at the other end.
Right, you could conceivably put your kayak in a little further in if you felt more comfortable, yeah.
Okay, so is there any possibility of putting an electric lift for kayaks on the stop?
I don't know that the Marine Board has any of those in the state that they have designed
Because they do have them, as you know.
for private use or for a public park.
Not for public.
Well, I don't know about private. I've just seen them done where you basically get in the kayak, it lifts you off the dock and drops you in the water.
That's a sandals resort.
Well, if you want people here, get them in any way you can. But that has not been part of the design process at this moment.
No.
Okay.
Any other comments from council?
I'd say great job, Jenny. Thank you for your hard work on this.
Yeah,
I think it's gonna be great for the community.
So at this point, we'll summarize feedback, get it to the Marine Board, and then they want the council to authorize a contract with you all for the technical assistance portion. They've had communities that didn't do outreach and got to the point where they spent 2 years permitting and designing a facility, and then they don't move forward with funding it. So they want a safety net to say, if you don't move forward with this, council, you have to pay us back for all that technical assistance we provided. So there'll be a contract before you at some point to, say, yes, we're going into this technical assistance program and we have intentions of building it. And that's also why they asked us to do some outreach to make sure that this is something the community would support and that you all as council would support. So just so you know, you'll see a contract in the future.
Are we gonna have a public meeting or presentation of this?
That's what this was.
No, I'm talking about, hey, this is what we're planning, kind of a PR job.
It'll be approved and authorized for signature.
So we can get started on time. I'm going to adjourn this session. Is there anyone else has anything pressing to add, by chance? Hearing none, this hearing.
Finally, sitting here.
Yeah.
I know.
You know what that causes about other places to be monitored.
Really?
Yep. We'll go ahead and call this council regular session to order. It's Wednesday, May 4th. Please join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Go ahead and get on with our first item, which is visitor comments. If you'd like to comment, please come on up and state your name and keep to 5 minutes or less.
Hi, I'm Rob Joel.
Rob?
Well, recently I was in what was it? The county guy's office over there, and then one of the courthouses upstairs. There's a homeless man that had moved into our dock. He'd been there for well over a week. I've been walking by with my dog. No one cares. So I asked him, how is it, that that's happening and that he's got a boat tied to the dock. He's been there for over a week and nobody is doing anything. Furthermore, he had another boat and it was pulled up on our dock. If you read the sign down there, it says you can't even take a bicycle on the dock unless it's for immediate load. Nothing's being enforced down there at all. And when I talked to the sheriff downstairs and I said a week, he said, oh, more like a month. You have two courthouses full of employees of the state, right? With enforcing laws, and there's a homeless camp moved in directly in their view. Nothing's being done to stop it. Here's nobody's checking, and if they are, they have no power to do anything. Since I complained, that boat has moved. There's another one moved in down there. And I'm just curious what's going on. Like, if there's got to be rules, right? And they need to be enforced. That's why we have them. Keep the community safe to make it nice. You go to a place like Florida, you see there that it's very nice. Everything's in order. People aren't breaking the rules. If you go to downtown Portland, you see it's chaos. It's complete hell. You're going to turn into Portland if we follow our path we're on. There's panhandlers constantly between Safeway and US Bank all the time. My way home from the courthouse, I passed another homeless camp or whatever camp, and it's the first one's across the street from the sheriff's office. He's got an RV there. Looks like he's been living there just off the side of the road for I don't know how long, but just across the street from the sheriff's office and jail. You go down the road just before Walmart on the right, there's multiple tents off in a field. The landowner knows and approves about it, but nobody's doing anything to prevent this. And with it's going to come more crime, more problems, and we're going to turn into Portland. It leaves the community members feeling unsafe. Furthermore, what rules are actually rules now? If they are allowed to just run willy-nilly and do anything they want, that stops me from doing anything I want. They definitely need to be enforced. That's why they're here. And like, I don't know what all the laws are and what all we can do, but if you have panhandlers standing there blocking a sidewalk, that's not good. It's not going to do anything good. People giving them money is like people buying beers for an alcoholic. You're enabling them to continue the problem instead of having them get help. I talked to the Safeway manager today, and it was the assistant manager, and I said, do you guys, what have you been told? And she's like, well, nothing. We can ask them to leave our property, but if they're on the sidewalk, it's fine. They said they have all kinds of problems. They said that they're the people that open the store in the morning, they are rushed and their bathrooms used for probably a shower. And then the cashier says special sanitizing spray to clean the registers after these people are done there because of the smell, allegedly. She said she'll come in to the next one of these meetings and talk to you guys. Unfortunately, she couldn't make it today, but I guess my question is what are we doing to stop from becoming Portland? I mean, there's nobody wants panhandlers out there. going on. Do you feel like it's safe for a young child to go by? Some are, but some might not be. And we want this place to grow into a beautiful place, right? Not to grow into Portland. That's not what we're trying to become, I hope. Because I certainly don't want to be anything to do with Portland. The last 2 times I was down there, the first of which we were down there, me and my old lady, and there were 6 people that went to a bum, and one of them beat the crap out of him, while the other 6 were recording, or the other 5 were recording it with their cell phones. And while he was doing it, he was screaming, "Don't tell people my brother doesn't pay his debts, blah, 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 blah." So obviously he'd come down there to repay this homeless man for whatever debt problem or whatever it was with his brother had, right? He called 911, and the 911 operator said, because by this time they were done fighting. The 911 dispatcher said, "So did they stop fighting? Okay, so then the situation resolved itself." It sounded like a much more serious type of crime to me than just a couple people, throwing blows at each other, and they didn't care. And the next time we went down there walking our 2 dogs, we were walking down the sidewalk and a bum lunged at me, like in my face, lunged at me. And I was like, "What the hell are you doing, man?" And he screamed, "What are you gonna do about it?" and got in my face. Nobody cares in Portland, and we're headed that way. Just down there in this park you guys want to develop. Sounds like a great idea, but I walk my dog there and I see homeless people or whatever these people are. Maybe they're just kids setting up tents in the evening. I've seen it. Who's enforcing what laws? There's.
So I'll give you a little bit of insight. We actually have been working on that kiosk down there. We got a lot of gun ordinance and a lot of rules involved with that. It is online now, right? Correct?
Is not quite, it's installed, but it's not.
So once that is in place, we can, that gives us the authority to actually go ahead and stamp a boat that has not paid. Because there are certain laws when it comes to boats and being a house, like a resident. So that's all I can say on that part of it. There is no camping on city property. We have an ordinance right now that states that. And the state doesn't help us out in any way, shape or form on those type of issues.
I'm not asking the state to. I'm asking
No,
you guys to.
no, they actually make it difficult for us.
I know they
That's what
do.
I'm trying to say.
They do make it very difficult. You're the solution, is what I'm saying.
We are aware of, when there are campers, I don't know, we notice, we do get after them, and we ask them to on the side of our streets, so.
Well, how is it happening across the street from the sheriff?
Well, that's the sheriff, maybe the sheriff has set up some agreement, and I don't know, we can definitely research that, and we will.
Because like I said, I'm not involved in our law enforcement, but when they see it, I guarantee an officer of the law has driven by.
So I know the sheriff's had a very difficult time with this, where they're out on the streets and out in the country and very expensive homes, and it's been brought up from legislators. And stuff was done about it because the legislator brought it up, a legislator, so and that could be one of those people.
Yeah, and my question would be, is how do you drive by and someone's clearly squatting someone else's property, right? If it's not on somebody like state land or whatever. If they're squatting it, are we contacting the homeowner to see if this person's squatting it?
We're gonna do this back for, give me your phone number. Oh, you got it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep, okay, and I'll research and give you a call personally.
John, the place that your park is like in the driveway of that junkyard is a fence around that whole area.
Yeah.
Of course, is that county property or city property? Because some
It's not
parts of
city.
Old Portland Road are.
It's city.
county.
It's park. It's private property.
Oh, is it private?
So, I'll check up on the unit that's by the jail. When people are on private property though and camping, it's up to the owner to actually police that.
Mhm.
Yes, yeah, it
Yeah,
is.
but at the same time, every time you see one of these camps, they start littering, right? So
Absolutely
would that be then,
ridiculous.
should I call dump stoppers to get them to do something?
Well, it's a lot
know
of
what I mean?
times, yes, a lot of times it's on private property, and we'd love to know about if there is, some homeless people out there. I know that, CCMH probably knows more than we do. Okay, so, we are definitely aware of it. We're not gonna become Portland. We're gonna do that.
I guess the question is, or I don't know what the police are doing, but why wouldn't they, if they see something that looks suspicious, investigate it? Because they can look up the owner and contact him. I don't know that we have anything like that put in place.
Our police do.
Have you called the police?
Yeah.
No, I came here.
You should call them and talk to them about it, because it's an ongoing problem in the
Yeah.
city that they're actively working on, and
That's a good point. A lot of times our police are also,
Aware of these same people.
citizen driven on those type of issues.
Oh, yeah, I would agree so, but I mean, they're not gonna change the law. They're not gonna do anything to help with the situation. They're there to enforce the law, not to change the law and make things better.
Yeah, but they can enforce the law for a car being parked off to the side of the road, and from there, they can put a stamp on it, and if it's not tagged, and,
or
or.
seeing suspicious behaviors.
Yeah.
That's a police officer's job to investigate that,
Yeah.
so.
So,
I would agree, but I will just say this last thing, that both those camps I was talking about were, if you go left or right out of the sheriff's office. They know about it. It's not my job to tell them to investigate what they drive by every day if they know it's wrong.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
so the sheriff's not affiliated with us. That's kind of.
Whoever, whatever.
Yeah.
It's known.
Just letting you know. Just letting you know, so.
City police.
Yeah, like I said, these are people you guys would work with, not me.
Okay, John's got your number written down. I'll be in contact with you, okay?
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you, Rob. Other visitor comments?
Brady Preheim is my name. And I wanted to talk about your item number 8 about the independent contractor agreement. Hopefully, that means that you're ready to sign it, because that's my complaint. Because here we are, we've been talking about a contract for over 6 months now. We're halfway through the year. It seems sort of futile to sign a 1-year contract. It's when it takes you 6 months to negotiate a contract. So it just seems as a matter of, Tina's a known quantity. We know what she does. I think that her contract should at least be a 3-year contract, maybe a 5-year contract, so that we don't have this turmoil and angst every year about, does she have a contract? I know if I was in her position, doing the work that she does, that if you had screwed me around all this time about not being certain if I had a contract, I would have walked and left, and we would be in a world of hurt. And so it just seems to me that we should commit. We know what she's done. There's always adjustments you can make. That you should give her a 3-year contract, and rather than give her a contract in June that's going to end in 6 months. So to me, that does not make any sense. The other thing that I'm not certain about is I had thought you had approved the vote. And now apparently from this afternoon session, you didn't approve the vote, but you're gonna have a hearing. And I don't know if you're gonna do that soon, because I think that's a very time sensitive thing, according to what she had said in the public record. And, there's events coming up this summer that are gonna require the use of the vote. And if you don't, again, get off the pot or chair or whatever you wanna call it and do something, you're not gonna get the vote. And those things are putting in jeopardy, including the sandcastle competition, which was a great event. I don't know if any of you went to it last year, but it was a fantastic event. A lot of people really enjoyed it. And you need to make that, so if you have to have a public hearing, it needs to be like next week. So you need to, or at least the next city council meeting, you cannot be delaying that decision. You need to make a decision if you haven't already. I kind of thought that you had, but if you hadn't, then again, you need to make that decision and act quickly, or we're not going to have a vote, and it's not going to be here in time for the events that she's planning. So I would encourage you to make a fast decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Brady. Any other visitor comments?
Good evening, council. Thank you very much. Congratulations to the city of St. Helens, E2C, Tina Curry, the citizens of St. Helens and St. Helens businesses on a resoundingly positive report concerning the audit of the city's tourism contractor, E2C. The exhaustive audit during the timeframe between June 1, 2021 through December 2021 conclusively established that tourism in the city of St. Helens brought in more than $1 million against documented expenses of $312,000. Nearly every penny was accounted for. Thank you, Patrick Berkeley, for letting the public know that the report was favorable and why in the work session. I'm gonna try to help the council, and I'm gonna give you guys some advice. You want to get tourism out of your hair, do it, and do it now. There are some haters in this town that want to hold it back. I give you an example of just some of the controversy, like the police station. People come to me and they say, the police station, it's so expensive. Oh, look where they're building it. And you know what I tell them? That ship has sailed. That decision has been made. You know, your input, it's been considered, it's a done deal. Same thing for tourism. You got people that want to say, I don't like that this town is a tourist. I don't like tourism. I don't like Halloween Town. I don't like Tina. And I say to those people, you lost. Too bad. I mean, I know you don't like tourism. This council is committed to tourism for years. And we've just established a very successful tourism program. And we're going to move forward with it. You live in a tourist town. That's where you live. You don't like Halloween Town. We've made substantial investments in putting Halloween Town forward over the years, and it's paid off. We are moving forward with Halloween Town because it's succeeded, and you need to accept that. I don't like Tina. Yeah, Tina's got her detractors, and you know, some of her criticisms are valid. I've been on the other side, but I think that people can work together and learn to work together and continue to work together. And you need to say, you know, I understand your concerns about Tina, but our contractor has earned the right to have an 18-month contract and has earned the right by exceeding our expectations and has earned the right by honestly accounting for every penny of the dollars that came in and has been attacked on all sides and has proven herself time and again to achieve. And that's what this town needs to be about, achievement. Look at what we're trying to create. Look where we're going with this place. What is your vision of this place? What are we going to be? Are we going to be the place that when people come in and exceed our expectations and they meet our goals, we malign them, we fire them because there are some people in this town that don't like it? Believe me, there are people that don't like this riverfront either. They don't like the Riverwalk either. And they're going to try to undermine this council's efforts. Leadership is what we are asking for from this council. And that's sometimes to let people know, you know what? The results are in, the votes are tallied, and we are moving forward with tourism. And we are moving forward with E2C. And you want this out of your hair? Get it out of your hair. Tell John Walsh, we're going to sign this 18-month contract. Let us know if we need to know something. Otherwise, we're going to do a quarterly report or a 6-month report. Get it off your agenda. Don't send mixed messages. Don't come before and on public record say, if we move forward with a contract on tourism. Those words should not come out of your mouth. And that's you're letting people know, oh, I still have a chance. I still can somehow derail this thing. I think all of you are tired of dealing with this issue. And I think that you can recognize that, you know, I like sports analogies. Barry Bonds, okay? Barry Bonds was a fantastic player for the San Francisco Giants, but people don't like Barry Bonds. He didn't give interviews. He was a
not the best fuzzy guy, but he hit home runs. And at this point, we have a home run hitter. And I'm not saying that because, Tina's a friend of mine. I've gotten to know her more, and I think that she brings a lot to this city. And I think she deserves our trust and she deserves our contract. And I think if anybody comes to you and says, why did you do that? You need to say, because she earned it. Because she earned it. She earned our trust and she earned it, and she's going in the direction we want to go. Well, I don't like that direction. I understand that. That is the direction this government is going. That is the direction that our leadership is going. We are a tourist town. We are Halloween town. We have a boat to drive back and forth. We are a fun place to live. I can tell you, my secretary, she just moved here from California. She loves the idea that this is Halloween town. She's inviting her friends. So there are people that think it's great. I understand that there are people who don't like it. But you set out to do something, you succeeded. And it's time to recognize that and to start saying to the detractors, this is our plan. We're moving forward with it. Thank you.
Any other visitor comments?
Tina Curry. First of all, I just want to thank everybody on the council for, allowing me the opportunity to work on these projects. It's been really gratifying to do that. And, I'm just looking forward to continuing to grow the tourism department in the community and encourage businesses to come to St. Helens and guests and spend money and enjoy the offerings that we planned. I'm not going to rehash the audit because even though Mayor Scholl was not at the meeting this afternoon, it was determined that we were going to put it out at least in one sheet that kind of makes it simple for people to understand, because it wasn't simple for people to understand. But essentially, just for the record, the only itemized receipts that lacked specific itemization, those receipts still had vendor names and were cash checks. They just didn't maybe have an invoice attached to them. Like when we write CERT a check or Kiwanis or a volunteer group, we don't expect them to give us an invoice because we've been making these donations for 5 years. So it's not an invoice that we pay from, but the check is received and they cash it. And then they publicly usually come in and thank you for it. So I didn't think it was necessary that they should have to send us a bill because we're doing an audit right now. As far as the small amount of cash transactions that don't come directly from the store that are deposited into the water department, those are still recorded because of course they are on the store machine as cash inventory. The only other income is very small amounts of income when we can sell a ticket at the gate when it's sold out for cash, or we have, as Brady was saying, someone who wants to buy an autograph and we can't get signal. And, so the only piece of this whole puzzle that lacks any itemization was actually not lacking in itemization. It was lacking in where the specific income came from. Like, I didn't record that it was $40 for an autograph if we received cash for that. So, and Matt Brown, your finance director, was perfectly fine in calling that general income. And in fact, we've been doing it that way for the last 4 years. So very recently we have changed that. But typically someone who has been accused of taking money, at the very least, I would be billing you for the full extent of the contract, which I have not done. But, the problem is that as recently as this week, yesterday in the paper, today in the paper, they're picking and choosing little phrases that someone may have made months ago. And even though they call me for verification, they don't write that because they're trying to sell papers. And we've known this happens in the whole course of being here for multiple years, that you cannot trust what the newspaper writes. You've got to just go to the source. So we're publicly asking that the city at least announce the findings of the audit in a readable format. The other thing I wanted to let you know that the store has temporarily closed due to a medical emergency, and hopefully that is going to be corrected. If not, we'll be looking for, you know, a new person over there. You may have noticed that we have a new vending machine by the store, and we are going to be stocking that with local artists offerings, as well as our official store merchandise, so that people can purchase things 24/7 if they come into town. As you probably noticed, there's a lot of stores that aren't open on Mondays or Tuesdays or so forth, but people still come to town and stay over on the weekends. So we want to at least have a place for them to go. You know, we also want to announce that Cascades is sponsoring both 13 Nights on the River and fireworks. Dino Nobel, Market Fresh St. Helens Auto Center, 2C's Vendor Mall, Composite Universal Group, Wanna Credit Union, Sand Island Campground, Keller Williams and the Jane Garcia team, the Big Food Cart and Brew, Best Western, Cascadia Home Loans, the Port of Columbia County are all teaming up to support our programs this year, which is awesome. And I want to thank everybody for, you know, that helps us with that, whether it's Public Works, whether it's Crystal with communications, or the guys that are out there in the rain putting up a banner that needs to get hung. We really know that nothing happens without a team effort. And we're looking forward to, you know, finalizing this contract, hopefully. And, you know, establishing a budget that's workable for everybody. And, you know, who knows what we can achieve next? I'm not sure, but I think it'll be great.
Cascade or Cascadia?
Cascades, Cascades, yeah.
Cascades. Excellent. Good job.
Yeah. So we've got like quite a few people came back from taking a break from COVID because they were just, you know, didn't have the resources then. With personnel mostly, you know, finding people to work is really hard, but now they're coming back. So it's a good thing. Thank you.
Thanks, Tina. You got one online?
Yeah.
Greetings, Counselor. My name is Matt Brown. I'm the Finance Director for the city. I wanted to take a quick second and make a note and a question to the City Council regarding the conversation this afternoon of item number 8 in the event contractor. I am curious if the City Council is going to move forward with a vote tonight on that contract that was reviewed.
You're curious as if we're going to move forward?
If you're going to vote on it. I was present during the conversation at the work session and noted a few changes that were brought up during the work session, as well as an email that was sent to the city administrator regarding a city auditor's opinion of a process and procedure change in relation to a portion of the contract that is not best practice for government finance. And so that reflected change, I think, should be in the new contract that you vote to approve. And so I'm asking if the City Council is willing to hear that recommendation from the auditor, as well as push off the vote until the next meeting, so that that can be incorporated into the new contract.
So did Peter Hicks present any, was he here earlier? Why wasn't he?
No, the issue is that the finances run through a trust account. That's the recommendation. I don't know that needs to be specifically in the contract or not, but certainly something we talked about creating a separate account. But
So that's something we could do. We could do through our financial department.
What specifically is noted, if I can speak to the auditor's recommendation, was that in the contract currently, as it states, the tourism director or contractor would submit a check of revenue at the end of December, and then the city in January would turn around and write that same amount check back to the event organizer. Essentially, it is a way for the event organizer to not have to pay taxes on the revenue received. When that process was brought up to the city auditor, it was requested by the auditor that the contractor set up a separate potential trust account so that they can receive revenue from the city and not declare revenue as a business. So therefore, they do not have to pay taxes on it. The city auditor did not like the process of having a check come to the city in December, and then in January, the city writes the check back to the contractor. And that is how it was explained at the work session.
We're not bringing that up in the work session.
Yeah.
That's the first I'm hearing of that.
I think the auditors.
That was briefly brought up in a very quick conversation of presentation from John.
You didn't say anything about the trust, though.
No, that was not brought up, and that is not part of the contract. That is the recommendation of the auditor, that a separate checking account, which could be set up as a trust, be used so that no money has to go back and forth between the city. This in turn actually creates more of a separation of tourism between the city and the tourism contractor, which I think is the goal and intention of the city council. The process of writing a check back and forth in December and January is in the current contract language, and that is not best practice or recommended by our auditors.
We can look into that further.
Yeah.
Second opinion on that. I don't think there's any reason to delay that.
Contract. Yeah, I
If we do amend it, we will.
I do know that there were things from the work session we were hoping to discuss with you, Mayor, Mr. Mayor. So maybe we could put those action items up before we vote on the contract.
Well, just, when when it comes up for discussion, we can talk about it.
Yeah.
I'll call for discussion when I read that part,
Okay.
okay?
Thank you. I do have,
Yeah.
Mayor, may I say one more thing quickly?
Yeah.
I just want to note that the audit report for the tourism department, I want to be very clear about what the city can and cannot say in relation to the results of the audit. It is very expressively said in the audit report that it does not contain an opinion, and that is expressly noted in the report. So it would be inaccurate to say in any way that the tourism contractor passed or failed in any sense of the way of the audit. What you can say as a city council is that you have received the audit and you are satisfied with the results. But it would not be correct to say that the tourism contractor passed or did not pass in any sense of the form.
Got it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other visitor comments?
In the city say it's delighted with the results.
No, satisfied. Satisfied.
I think we can
I don't know.
offer an explanation, though.
So I'm not gonna worry about that.
Sorry, that's it. That was my last one.
Satisfied. Accept out, however you want to say. Okay, so other visitor comments, Kathy, any online? No? Nobody else in here? Okay, we'll go ahead and do deliberation on the vacation of the entire 7th Street right away of the South St. Helens addition lying northeast of Casper Road.
And just for formalities and the extension of the South 16th Street right-of-way lying south of the East Street right-of-way within St. Helens subdivision, St. Helens, Columbia County, Oregon, as dedicated by Columbia County Deed Book 272, page 970. There's two funky areas basically, to boil that down. So no controversy. It looks very straightforward. Just for the sake of efficiency, I'm going to assume that all are on board. Mayor Scholl, you weren't here and you didn't have a chance to review the records, so you'll have to recuse yourself.
Well, I'm familiar with the whole entire project. If anybody's watching knows, 7th Street drove me nuts because it's
Yep.
not even anywhere near 7th Street. It's actually a side
And this
street.
is your chance to get rid of it.
Yes, so and I'm pretty comfortable that I can abstain and that the council's gonna be passing it, so, but go ahead, deliberate amongst yourselves.
And I'll just. The recommendation, just to help you with the motion, I don't wanna, please deliberate, but let me just get these details out. That's, the council grant the vacation with the provision that a 50-foot wide easement be granted that follows the power line as may be relocated due to development plans between Castor Road and South 15th Street as a condition of land use approval to develop property that abuts the vacated right of way.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Discussion, I think I heard so. Over here, no? Were you seconded it, Councilor Berkeley?
No, I heard it second, no.
Okay, all right. So, Councilor Morton.
Aye.
Councilor Topaz.
Aye.
Councilor Chilton.
Aye.
Councilor Berkeley.
Aye.
And I'm abstained.
Okay, we'll bring an ordinance
Motion
back.
passes, yep.
Thank you.
All right, ordinance final reading, ordinance number 3282, an ordinance to amend the city of St. Helens zoning district map to add a planned development overlay zone for certain property generally located at the northern terming of North 8th, 9th, and 10th Street of Deer Island Road.
I move we adopt ordinance number 3282 as read.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to approve ordinance 3282. Council President Moore.
Aye.
Aye. Councilor Shelton.
Aye.
Councilor Berkeley.
Aye.
No, and I as well. Okay, resolution number 1950, resolution adopting the city. Excuse me, a resolution adopting the St. Helens Water Master Plan and Water Management and Conservation Plan.
I move we adopt resolution number 3 on the agenda,
1950.
resolution number 1950 as read.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to approve resolution 1950. Council President Morton.
Aye.
Council Topaz.
Aye.
Council Shelton.
Aye.
Berkeley. Aye. No, and I as well. Resolution 1951, resolution determining that a nuisance exists upon property located at 394 South 12th Street within the city of St. Helens and directing that notice to abate the nuisance be posted on said premises.
Move we adopt resolution 1951 as read.
Second.
Discussion?
Yep.
Could you remind me of what situation this is before we?
This is probably code enforcement, and there was pictures in our, I'm sure in our packet. It's always, and I think it's the same house. Is it the same 12th Street?
It's
No?
a different house.
Okay.
It's junk and auto parts and
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff.
So a post, and then it gives them X amount of days to do it, and then if not, the city will come in and clean it up,
Okay. Thank you,
On-
Councilor Topaz.
and Pelini gets the house.
All right.
Yeah, we don't mess around.
It's,
Yeah. Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Council President Warren.
Aye.
Councilor Topaz. Aye. Councilor Chilton.
Aye.
Councilor Berkeley.
aye.
I'm an aye as well. Resolution 1952, a resolution to amend the City of St. Helens Personnel Policy and Procedures Handbook. Resolution 1913 regarding payroll policies.
I move we adopt resolution number 1952 as read.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to approve resolution 1952. Council President Morton.
Aye.
Councilor Topaz.
Aye.
Councilor Chilton.
Aye.
Councilor Berkeley.
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Well, the once a month, that's all that was. Resolution number, or twice a month, twice a month, and not a draw, like what it was before. Resolution number 1953, a resolution of the city of St. Helens City Council adopting strategic work plan for 2022 to 2024.
I move we adopt resolution number 1953 as read.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded for resolution 1953. Council President Morton.
Aye.
Councilor Topaz.
Aye.
Councilor Chilton.
Aye.
Councilor Berkeley.
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Okay, approve and authorize for signature 7 agreement. Number 2, contract with J.H. Kelly LLC for Columbia Pacific Food Bank renovation project. A independent contract agreement with E2C Corp for event management. Let's quote those two, it looks like. Somebody want to make a motion?
I move that we adopt or approve, for signature, items 7 and 8 as read.
Second,
Okay, discussion, yep, this is where we would stop.
On the contract on the food bank, the last I knew, the beginning of this week, they had not received a permit of occupancy.
That's right. They have not received their final occupancy.
Should the contract be,
This
that
is an
payment be held?
extension, this is an extension of time with the contractor who's gonna finish the work to get occupancy.
Okay, so this isn't being paid because it's usable, it just extends the contract so they can do it.
Yeah, their deadline was the 15th of this month, and we're extending it an additional, I think it was 3 months. June 30th would be their new deadline, but they better get it done this month.
Okay,
It's close.
Yeah, the question was payment and the fact that it hadn't
Oh,
received.
yeah, this isn't approving a payment.
Oh, okay.
This is an amendment.
Some of that, the flooding issue.
Some of it, yeah, a lot of it is just final inspection things that our building inspector pointed out. Small things, but.
Okay, so I know you guys had a discussion on the independent contractor agreement with E2C, and there's some things that I should be informed of that were talked about earlier.
There were some adjustments to the exact sheet of paper. Would you describe it like that? Some small things?
There were some suggestions that made, but I don't know that.
John, can you maybe summarize
Yeah,
what?
I'm trying
I have some notes, but yeah.
It seemed to revolve around directing contractor to have the appropriate amount of public engagement and communication with all directions pretty much, as far as staff and vendors and council. It's not explicit in the contract, but it's happened throughout the project, I think, and I think we're doing, been heard about that.
So, yeah, so, yeah, and I think I'm ready to move forward with the contract, but with the understanding that the concerns or questions we have raised and some of the details about establishing internal procedures or whatever, need to be developed to ensure that the contract is enforced. So I don't see those suggestions that were brought up needing to be incorporated into the contract. But I do hope that our administration and our staff they take the appropriate steps to make sure that things are done well.
Doesn't that have to be done legally before it's signed? We know what it's gonna be, but doesn't that have to be on paper before it's signed?
No, the best we can get the financial stuff set up.
Yeah, I mean, I think I see, and it might not be great at the exact analogy, but when I was on the school board and Lisa's husband might share this with her, that we have, when we passed board policies or board policies passed, but then there were administrative rules that were adopted put together by administration that were eventually adopted by the board. And I've kind of seen this in that way, that we are having this contract, and as we continue to work on developing how we do that as our administration and staff are looking forward to implementing it, that the dialogue would continue. And I mean, we could put it down as a series of verbal, so that's just kind of how I'm picturing this. That move ahead with the contract, and we need other things that can be dealt with in the context of the contract.
Well, I wanted to just say that, you know, I think that it's in the best interest of the city to move along in more of a hands-off approach when it comes to tourism. And I think after the results of the audit, we are sitting in a really good place where we're able to do that and say, look, we've done our due diligence here and we've, you know, worked to fix some of these problems that have been identified, and we're ready to move forward with a more hands-off approach. Now, of course, we're still the city. This is still the city's, you know, project. So we're still gonna get knocks on our doors when things go wrong, and we're still gonna, you know, we're gonna get, we're gonna have people that are concerned about how things are running and stuff. So it probably won't fully ever go away, but I think we will be able to move forward with knowing where we're at and how we're gonna move forward with cleaning things up a little bit. And a couple of the suggestions that I had after I put everything together, the old contract, the new contract, the third contract, the memos from the, you know, the committee, that we had a committee that of staff that came together and had suggestions. John had some ideas about how we can be more hands-off if that's what the city wanted to do. And after coming up with that, I have just a few things that I just wanted to make sure that, you know, we find a way to include, which is we should have a place in the, or we should have Halloween Town community meetings where their local businesses can come and vendors and do some meetings. And I know our contractor has done those in the past. So just finding a way to implement those so that people feel like they have a place where they can come and get details and information about Halloween Town, I think is going to be essential. And then internal meetings. Making sure that we're having, you know, a planning meeting for Halloween Town, knowing what resources we're going to be using of public works and police and parks and rec, and making sure that, you know, permits are being issued and in a timely manner and everybody's getting their needs met so that it flows well. I think that is important. And then the last suggestion I had was trying to maybe limit the amount of talk that we have around Halloween Town. It's really consumed city council meetings. And so maybe like 2 times a year, having official reports from tourism to the council and trying to limit those reports just to keep it really clear and having some continuity in how we, you know, talk about our programs. You know, we don't hear from Parks and Rec as frequently as we hear from our contractors. So being able to, I think, change that dynamic will also be helpful.
Yeah.
Those were I didn't realize that mine were the only one that we were going to talk about. Otherwise, I would have said those from the get-go, but
unless it's on paper, it doesn't exist for a contract. That's really the question. The discussion is not that they're right or wrong, is we have to make sure they get on paper at the signature time, because if they just drift in, it doesn't make any difference unless we somehow note that things are coming in.
well, I'm wondering if it maybe doesn't necessarily need to be in a contract with our tourism contract, but within our oversight of John, who has the oversight over tourism.
It's gotta be written down someplace,
I
that's the
feel like-
question though.
It's a pretty generous reporting. And the city has a right for, you know, as much reporting as we want and or that you want is.
That would be reporting.
And whether it's financial, whether it's
Yeah.
communication, whether, whatever aspects.
And I mean, and I'm not saying it, you know, we're not, this is a good contract. I mean, either side could say, well, we're done, you know, and this is a good contract. That's not what I'm saying either. Don't read that wrong. Okay, but I think, you know, this thing has been exhausting for all of us. It really has. I don't like what it's done some to our internal staff as well here. It affects me because it affects them in a negative way. And trying to put this to bed because it's been going on, you know, it's been going on far too long. And we will make sure that we get everything necessary that needs to happen. The contract's good, it's solid, it is. If we decide we want to be, like I said, I'd love to go with you. Thank you for giving that something early. Yeah, I mean, that wasn't a long time, but it was enough to look up, so.
Motion on the table.
Well, is there a backdoor, is there a portion of this contract is that it can be amended as required? Once this is signed, that's it. See, one of the problems we have is Tina. Tina's done a good job. What happens years later when we have somebody else running it and you run into the problem?
In a new contract, there's gonna be another contract.
Well, that's the question. Do we have a tourism contract that we just go on, or do we have it who we're contracting to?
So this establishes a contract. Within the contract, there is a scope of work that has the programs. And after this supplement to this contract that's haven't developed yet is the budget for the coming year. And that budget will have the scope of work and budgets for each item. That's something that's mutually agreed upon as well. And there's also the core projects and there's also and the additional projects. Those are all a la carte approved by the city as well with their budget. So there's.
So as we're changing, things can get added.
A lot of checks and balances is what I'm hearing. The big purchases are still gonna be coming before us. We're gonna know about them, all that type of stuff, because it is our tourism, right? Okay. Any other discussion? Thank you for having a long discussion earlier, and I'll share my report what I've been going through lately, so. Okay. All right, approve and authorize for signature. I have a motion that's been made and seconded on approve and authorize for signature 7 and 8. Council President Morton.
Aye.
Aye. Councilor Chilton.
Aye.
Councilor Berkeley, and I'm an aye as well. Okay, so consent agenda for approval. 9, council work session, executive session, public hearing, regular session minutes dated April 6th, 2022. Council executive session summary minutes dated April 18th, 2022. Council work session and regular session minutes dated April 20th, 2022. And declare surplus property library items. 11, accounts payable bill list.
I move we approve consent agenda items number 9, 10, 11 as presented by the mayor.
Second.
Okay, motion.
Discussion.
Yep.
I had Mayor Scholes read my diploma from engineering school. There's one line left out in the report. And it's a critical line because it has, the date was not put in the minutes. And it becomes important that the date of that certificate is indicated.
I remember it was fairly old too.
That's right. But see, that reflects in the next part of it too, which had to do with the professional stamp. That's where the date also becomes critical. The date was January 61.
Yep.
And that was the line that was
So
missing.
can we just amend that?
Yeah, I mean, that's
throw it in there, okay?
all we need, yeah.
Okay, Councilor, motion's been made and seconded to approve consent agenda 9, 10, and 11. Council President Moore.
Aye.
Councilor Topaz.
Aye.
Councilor Chilton.
Aye.
Councilor Berkeley.
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. And do we have any action items from our work session?
Kathy, I was like, I hope somebody was
Kathy's gonna
keeping track.
report, Kathy.
Dawn.
The first one was a funding request from the Port of Columbia County for $7,500 to go towards the mobility, safety and mobility.
So that was the first item on the work session today.
7,500. And other places are you've been working with them fairly intently on this.
Yeah,
Does she acknowledge that the other municipalities already had paid for
Scappoose, I
it?
know Scappoose did.
What's that?
It said Scappoose paid.
Only Scappoose,
Let's see.
And then they got grants. I think there was grants that they have
but
received.
there was other municipalities, there was like 7 of them, I believe, or 5 of them. But if Scappoose is paid.
No, I think it's just mainly it's kept this because we,
In the county.
yeah, in the county.
St. Columbia City, Class.
Columbia City, Class
Oh, yeah.
CET, Global Partners, Next Renewable, Port of Columbia County.
Oh, Patrick set the whole list.
Well, I
I
pulled up
know.
the report. That was phase 1. Phase 2 now, there's City of Salt. So phase 2, so this is, so it's City of Scappoose so far, Port of Columbia County, and the Port Planning Marketing Grant State of Oregon. So
We
it
all,
looks like Scappoose is the only one so far.
we all know that this day and age, if you don't have the planning already in process, you're never gonna get any type of grant or, you know, moving forward, at least get the planning in process, so.
The only concern that I had was that Jacob brought up a point, which is that he wanted to make sure that the connector plan was included in that. Because a lot of our road rates were changing, is that correct? And that wasn't included in that. So do you think we should move forward, or do you think that needs to be corrected first?
I had a conversation with the port, and that's all gonna be resolved, yeah, so that's all cool, I wouldn't sweat that.
Okay, that's the only thing that I was like, oh, wait, we gotta see what Jacob says.
Well, I think it's money well spent, if somebody wants to make a motion.
Part of the problem in this discussion was some of this was done in 19. And we've had changes. We have the apartment being built there and things like that, which hadn't been put into what was presented to us. So there's that date presentation, but a number of things that happened that are gonna affect it. That's what this discussion got to be about.
But I know John Walsh has sat in on a lot of these meetings too, and it's dove in a lot deeper, it has. So, yeah,
And that's-
it's a whole other gear, but.
That's that part of it too.
Well, I think that those changes that you're talking about, Counselor Topaz, are only gonna make this need even greater.
I didn't.
So-
Emotion.
You know what I mean?
They had to be done.
Yes.
Councilor Berkeley, you can go ahead and make a motion.
I move,
Sorry, I just
I
wanted to
move
say
that we approve expenditure of $7,500 in support of phase 2 of the Columbia County Rail Study. Does that work?
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to approve 7,500 to the rail study, the second phase. Council President Morton.
Aye.
Council Topaz.
Aye.
Councilor Chilton.
Aye.
Council Berkeley.
Aye.
Oh, be an aye as well on this. All right, Kathy.
The next one is, would you like to have staff bring back a resolution on June 1st for the utility rates increase?
Yes. Yes, I.
Jumped right in there, didn't you?
No, because, well, we're talking about this, but I just know that we have some issues that have to be addressed. It's unfortunate, it's not popular, it's the wrong time to be doing it. If you're in my shoes, if you're in my seat,
I think we need to.
but
look
we
at
have
it.
some issues.
So does that need just a nod, yes, or we don't have to formally, so just a nod? Yeah.
Jenny's side. This meeting.
There's, council needs to discuss whether or not they want to pay back the funds to other funds out of the tourism money.
Yes, so it was brought to our attention, that we have not addressed repaying the funds that were borrowed from for tourism from. what fund?
Community Development Fund.
Yes, and so we wanted to discuss whether, how we want to handle that going forward.
Well, I think it was borrowed, and I don't think it should be all at once. Me personally, I looked at that, I actually got that email, and, you know, I mean, again, it keeps, you know, like I said, this tourism thing has really affected some of our staff, and, but I think definitely we should be fair to the process of allowing tourism to continue to grow, rather than like, oh, you know, I just think a repayment plan of some sort, is way to go.
I can't recall ever agreeing to a repayment at all. I cannot recall that. I
So-
can't, I've tried to find it in writing anywhere. It It's non-existent.
I
It's
don't
the
think it was an
first,
agreement, it was a recommendation.
it's the first I heard of it.
Yeah.
Just recently. We go, what? To who? Out of tourism? To the city? I can't recall that.
Well, I do have the memo, so I mean, I do have the,
No, that.
and John has
what
said
Doug's-
that it's there.
Well, what's Doug saying is, no, that was a memo sent by a staff advising council as a recommendation. You read that, that's what it was.
Yeah.
No, I understand
Yeah.
that, but I'm just asking, is there a deficit there, John, that needs to be repaid?
There was money borrowed to balance the tourism fund
Yes.
a little bit over a couple of years there. And from my perspective, that money's just sitting there as one-time revenue to support projects. And, what could you better invest that money on as much of a return as we've realized over the last couple of years? Is rolling that investment back into the.
And just remember, one of those years is when COVID started, that it kind of, was invested a while ago. Actually it was, so.
No,
but,
yeah, it was.
And our public works guys, I don't know if that, well, I haven't talked to them about it, but if that's accurate or not. A year in advance of the contract, there's,
Never brought it up to me.
And actually,
and don't we still get a hotel tax?
the former contract talks about public works supporting tourism.
Yes.
So it doesn't think about cost recovery or anything like that.
Yeah, so, there's this, that whole recommendation, just, I think we definitely, there's something that needs to be brought up as a payment. Repay that, specifically the, couple.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that would be good practice. It doesn't have to be all at once and it doesn't have to be a halt to any other things. Just, I think we need something kind of flowing there to get that back and get a checks and balances there.
So, looking at the money. If we do, so three things, 140,000 for the roads, 80,000 for expenses.
2 years.
And 120,000 as a reserve balance. So I'm thinking, I like the idea of the money being paid back eventually, because it was an expense incurred by the city. And if we do have a profitable year, we can do it. So not all at once, so that we can have $140,000, $80,000, and then there's $30,000 left. After you took all these three recommendations, there were $30,000 left. 140,000 and 80,000 is 220,000 and 30,000 is 250,000. So I think that we can work this out, 120,000 maybe for a reserve fund, not expect immediate payment or out of this year's budget of those other expenses. But I would like us to move forward to seeing eventual recovery of that, but not as an obstacle to us being able to purchase the.
I don't agree with the reserve fund. Sorry.
Right, well, and then we don't have to, but I'm just saying that even we don't need that reserve fund in order to, I think if time is of the essence to get the boat. So I'm just saying that's a way to do it, and we don't have to keep the reserve fund, we can discuss it. But I think at the very least we can move forward with this.
The payment to Public Works is not due in contract either.
Yeah, okay, right.
Let's just say we want to do a payment, let's just say we want to do a payment plan of, the new development fund for right now. What do we want to do?
At this time.
That's what we want to do at this time, yes. And we want to at least three years, I think should be fine. For 140, pay off 140,000.
6 months.
So, but no, that's,
I never understood that was a loan.
so, but in future, we will know that moving forward, that we will also be doing we could take one of our public works and add that to that. I think in all fairness, because you guys brought it to, everybody here brought it to, and I was kind of like rebel rouser, like, oh, you know, and we did the audit and we had Mohammed do that. We might, if we don't pay it back, but we at least start, that actually works into the budget from now on. Instead of it supporting tourism, that it actually starts paying.
Sure.
So that's what we'd like to see for sure, is even if we don't, are we not wanting to do any payback to Public Works?
I am not sure that that's appropriate. It sounds like John is thinking that
And
that's
the way it
maybe one
read,
that should
the
have
way
been
it read.
absorbed.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
but I think the
For
fund,
future.
it came from, some of the money came from the general fund or something else, right? What other fund?
Community Development Fund.
Community Development Fund. So repaying that, I think, would be important to make ourselves whole as far as our funding streams are.
Okay, so this community development fund, we'll keep it simple.
May I
Okay
get a
with that,
motion?
Counselor Martin?
Well,
You seem really.
no, I'm not okay with it.
Okay. I
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Well, I think that was one that is legit because we actually did lend it money out of our community development. Let's not forget that Tina did take a furlough through all this COVID stuff too. I just wanna, you know, I mean, this keeps coming up and, you know, I mean, it's like, you know, but I'm just. Like
I
I said,
had an
it
understanding.
has affected some of our staff members that I'm just making counsel where that I'm deeply disturbed about the way it has affected some of our people that work here. It's not okay. It's just not okay that you take stuff and you take it home. We're supposed to be all about family, right? Family first. Isn't that correct? Here I just came from my cousin's viewing, family first. And we're getting that deeply affected by this, that we're taking stuff home. Time to take a deep breath. If we have to have a retreat for us and our staff, then that's what we're gonna do. Kathy?
Matt wants to clarify his email. Okay,
No, it's not okay. Exactly what I'm talking about here.
So in my mind, there's not a question of whether or not the funds, the community development funds get repaid. It's a matter of when they get repaid.
Yes,
Okay.
Yes.
And if it's
because we have to make a whole.
okay to roll them over and pay it back over the next year, 2 years or two, whatever, but they're gonna get repaid.
It makes it whole, yes.
And 80,000 for public work was never part of the contract. It would be nice to get paid, but it wasn't part of the contract, so we can
And there's,
let that go.
you know, some things as far as, you know, how we have things set up with Sand Island, and it's kind of a license agreement of sorts where they, at some point, the city's healthy enough to recognize a full 10% off of the vet or something like that, that would be great. It would support city services. It would,
So
So we definitely want a payment plan for the community development.
wait, do we need a motion? I think we need a motion.
Sure, somebody make a motion.
I motion that we develop a payment plan to repay the community development fund
2 years.
within 2 years. For the
70
deficit that was used for tourism.
70 a year. Anybody got a second?
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to make a payment plan for 2 years with community development payback of 140,000. Council President Morton?
Nay.
Okay. Councilor Tevez?
Yay.
Councilor Shelton?
Aye.
Councilor Berkeley?
I,
And I'll be an aye as well.
Claire, just to tell why I voted nay,
Yeah.
I would have rather paid that back in a 5-year time rather than 2 years, but if, you know, that's what council feels, that's the most important. I'm with you. But I voted against it.
Okay.
Okay, we still love you, Doug.
Negotiate.
Okay, what else we got?
Discuss the purchase of the boat.
Okay, discussion of the purchase of the boat.
Well, and this was the kind of along the same lines here with this topic, so.
I think for me personally, I'm ready to get a public hearing if that's what it takes. Let's get it going. for $250,000 for a 30-passenger, 40-foot pontoon aluminum boat with brand new motors and steering and canopy and a trailer with it. It's a good deal. That's a good deal.
Right, I actually, that's what I had been anticipating, we would have had a public hearing set. That was my understanding when we, met 2 weeks ago, so we need to.
Yeah, so what kind of date you guys want?
Well, the question I have is not the cost of the vote, that's a good deal. My question was the auxiliary things you need with it, like parking. And I would prefer to have that boat docked at a city dock as compared to having a favorite person that we're renting dock space from. Now, we are limited in boat, we do have places we could put a city dock. So I was wanting to make the boat a little larger as far as design. Parking, obviously, we're gonna have a lot of people in Sand Island, more than just a boat full at a time. How are we going to do this? This is where the public meeting would be variable.
We have a tram.
Okay, well, that's fine, but that's exactly the point. The plan is you park your car here, you get on the tram, you go down to the boat. I want a plan laid out how people are going to use it.
That's micromanaging
So,
so much that it's
yeah, but we
just,
need
it's,
parking places. That's not micromanaging.
So that is micromanaging, but, so we can. I just, with the discussion on the boat itself is what, we're not talking about the parking, we're talking about the boat itself. And, with a ramp, also with a gate to ramp right over, like you would, like the military does, and they'll lower it down, and you just walk right onto the beach. Ta-da, you're here, you found your destination. And, as far as it being moored, Marina, it is what it is. They're not gonna use it for the Sand Island, it is the tourism in the cities. On special events, maybe over there, it might be used, but not them using it. So I think it's a really good deal. I think we should set a date to have a public hearing real soon.
Yeah.
Should we do it before our budget meeting? After our budget meeting?
Don't even, man. We have so much going on right now.
We're gonna be here the 12th anyhow, right? May 12th.
We already have a full night though, don't we?
We
Isn't
got
it?
plenty
Or
of
a queues on the 12th or like 3 hours.
May 11th.
No, the budget is May 11th. The 12th is our RFQs, isn't it?
Budget is 12th.
Oh, it's the opposite. Okay. There's just a lot going on right now, but.
May 18th would work.
May 18th, our next council meeting. Okay, our next council meeting,
Isn't there a 6 o'clock selection committee on the 18th?
We could do it before.
Before the 6 o'clock? There is a lot.
listen, we can do it via Zoom. We can do it via Zoom too. We can do it via Zoom. We were doing it for 2 years.
I think that's still the same. Before the 6 o'clock meeting, right?
It would just be a 5:30.
At this point, we have to advertise it in the paper, so
Okay.
we send it out this week, it goes in on the 11th,
Okay,
so. That would give a week's notice to have it on the 18th.
okay. Let's do it for the 18th.
5:30.
Yep.
Might need to bring dinner here. 2 weeks.
Is the 18th also the public meeting on the?
Or where?
Yes, yeah,
Yes.
that's what we were just talking
Yes.
about. That's what we were just talking about. So we're gonna do it 5:30. We're gonna. And hopefully it doesn't bleed over. And if not, we'll have to recess it and bring it back in after that meeting.
Question that wanted to be discussed, are we going to publicly comment on the events management audit?
Yes, we were satisfied with the public audit. That's our comment. We're satisfied. The city is satisfied.
We were thinking about having some, I think what we were saying, having Crystal reach out or develop something that it was also an explanation about.
Well, just
I
make
think
sure.
we're allowed to say why we're satisfied with the
Well, that's what apparently all we could say.
Yeah, the
because-
caution is to use counting ease terms as far as what opinions and.
Sure. So we're satisfied.
Yeah.
They did not offer an opinion.
I
But
do
we
listen.
are satisfied.
I do
We.
Okay. The auditor RFP. We want to go out for an RFP for an auditor or renew the contract that we have.
With the contract that we just used.
Well, the city audit. So Polly Rogers.
Yeah, we want to go with them.
The
Oh,
discussion
so the
was
discussion.
that it's good practice to, over a certain amount of time, to like switch auditors.
Mhm.
Because there's been a history, you know, Doug brought up some of the history of having an auditor for 20 years or something. This one we've had for 9 years. And so it's looked at as good practice, according to our finance department.
Yeah.
To switch
Yes.
auditors over a certain amount of time to make sure there's no, biases happening or.
I would certainly be in favor of sending out a request.
And who knows?
Doesn't mean that we have to.
Choose that then.
Right.
Yes.
Right, same.
Go ahead now on that one.
Last one is to just discuss whether or not to give some money to the people that are tenants on South 12th Street in the house that are moving out.
Oh,
It's pretty common that with most people, when they have to evict, like we kind of did. I think. I know.
Yeah, this is.
It's
I
cheaper.
don't know if we want to, how much detail you want to go into here in open session, but just as a courtesy of the situation and the risk to the city. But we talked about two things. One is to authorize a payment to the Berry Hills in amount of $1,295 for relocation assistance, and then also make the property management services, premier property management services whole by adding $315 to that, which there would have been fees that are being paid,
Oh, yeah, probably should.
total of $1,610.
With the hopes that we could then move forward with the purchase of the property, which is part of our, connector plan and,
Yeah.
allowing the fire department to come in. They wanted to do some, practice
Yep.
with the home.
We're gonna move forward with the demolition of the home.
Okay, does somebody want to make a motion for a check be written for 116 to finalize the 12-3 house?
How much?
$1,610. Oh,
Correct, yeah.
somebody?
that's the house, what are we calling the house?
12th Street, turnabout house.
I move that we authorize payment in the amount of $1,610 to move ahead with the house on 12th Street,
Tenants.
the turnabout house. To resolve the issues related to being able to use it.
Slow and deliberate, but well stated.
I was like, is he gonna get there?
I try,
Well, I
I
second that.
try to find studies.
Okay, motion been made to go ahead and write a check to make it whole to the property management and to the current tenants at the 12th Street
He did it.
turnabout house of $1,610. Council President.
Aye.
Aye. Councilor Chilton.
Hi.
Councilor Berkman.
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well.
You should just made the motion. Okay, anyway, okay.
That's why I didn't jump in.
Okay, is that it? All right, council reports. Council President Morton.
Oh, I had a question from with Kathy. The Parks Commission voted on a new member to the commission. Did they get the results to you by chance?
They did, however, they did not make a motion at the Parks Commission meeting to appoint whoever was the highest. So that it has to go back to the commission for them to make a motion, to make a recommendation to the council.
Okay,
That'll be next week. Yeah.
okay. Thank you. I have nothing else to report.
Okay. Councilor Topaz. I have a number of things. A number of meetings ago, I asked for an accounting of how much money has been spent by our legal forces on the marijuana property starting back in 2017. From engineering, lease writing, and a number of things there. And I was told to be at the next meeting, which it hasn't been. So I'm still looking for the total amount of monies that our forces have used to buy the property, to defend the Cascade legal problems, the appeal. And what would like to know, because it almost seems like we're spending more money in legal fees than they're paying us to buy the property. That's the first thing.
Can't you get that from our finance director, Matt?
I want it done publicly. I've
Well,
gone
then he
to,
could report publicly, but I mean,
well, I want it done public. And this was not made, it was gonna be brought up again, was not. Now, parking, boat, waterfront, industrial and growth, all of these things are tied together. And I think we keep talking about a good master plan. And one of the things that has come up, and I've spent 48 minutes with DEQ on the contaminated waterfront of the whole mill property. The whole mill property contamination limit literally goes from the front of the Riverwalk all the way back. And they've been working on this since 1987. And that's, I sent all of you people some paper on it. That's project one, and they have not come to a conclusion. Their thought is, and they're supposedly having a public meeting sometime this summer of capping it with a sand and charcoal, which says we can't use that waterfront for anything forever. They have not contacted the Army Corps or the EPA, which are gonna get into it. The bad part of the news is that's project one, which is just between them and Boise. But project two is the DEQ cleanup of our mill site on dry land. And that covers the whole thing. Again, that's between Boise and DEQ. Nobody else seems to be involved. And I don't think the city has been informed of what that means to go. The next thing is there was a administrative staff indicated the budget for the library was going to be cut 21%. This was a proposal, and it was going to be done by removing one of the administrative staff because that position at this moment is not filled. That has brought a firestorm up in the town, like you're finding out. The other thing that is brought up is that the staff does not think the library is worth it. This is the second position that has been removed. In fact, that's why we don't have a Sunday opening, because a few years back, before I was on council, they saved money by eliminating a position which keeps us below the needed personnel level to run on Sundays. The other thing, as you know, Susan Bonamici was here to look at the makerspace, because we've made such a reputation for having a super library. Other people have come here to be taught how to do it. And many of these libraries have a higher budget level than our people do. And it'd be very good to take our people who've already done it. And our people are beginning to look, because the city administrative staff does not look like they are going to back to the city in a upfront thing. The council can reverse it, but it's the appearances that the city staff doesn't want it, because they use any trick they can rather than force us to fill those two positions. So that's one of the things that we have it, as I say, you're seeing the information come out in the library. That's what I have. It's somewhat disturbing that of the things that are happening that we don't have control of. That DEQ waterfront contamination That's basically a mile of waterfront that won't be able to be used if they proceed the way they wanna go. And their thought, by the way, is to pull the dock that's there now, that the dock that we had hopefully rented to the tug company to use. While it's in disrepair, if it's repaired, the Army Corps accepts it as okay. If we pull the pilings, that dock disappears and you won't be able to get it back in unless you go through the whole rigmarole for Army Corps again. But right now, with contaminated surface, you can't put a dock in there. That's what I have to say. I think most of that was in the paper I sent to the staff, whether to the council. Thank you.
Okay. Have you been in contact with DEQ?
Yeah.
On that? Okay. We'll make sure. Councilor Chilton, I'm sorry.
Well, I had some other things I was gonna report on, but I think it's more important that I clear up some of the statements that Councilor Topaz just said in regarding the library. So first of all, I'm pretty sure you sat in here when we had a lawyer from the police committee come here and tell us that we are at critical staffing for our police. And it's unfortunate that we have to look at cutting any types of programs at all. But I don't believe that we can have programs and provide extracurricular activities if we can't even keep our citizens safe. That is an absolute necessity, and I will fight for it to the nail. I will. And so I do believe, and I also want to clarify that staff is not doing this behind our back. This has been something that I myself assigned to the police commission am aware of. And it's coming to the budget committee so that we can talk about it fully as a full budget committee. But I stand behind us needing to do that. And I'm open to conversations regarding it at any time.
One, I was never informed of anything. That's one thing. Two, I think the police force will be doubled with the addition. I don't think the police force is being enforced enough. I have to agree with you there.
We have a limited amount of funds.
So no, I think we gotta go find some more funds, because as we've heard today, we're starting to get a homeless problem, which is gonna need more manpower. We're short now.
And that's why we're addressing this.
But we
That's why it's
also,
important to the city.
the way the city goes forward is having a good flag, and our good flag is the library, which are cutting down.
Okay.
That's a problem.
Okay, so it's her report, so let's.
I just want to clarify that is what's happening, and it hasn't been totally transparent, and it seems like people that are upset about the library position being on the table are not aware of the police issues that we are looking at right now. And it's gonna come to light in that budget committee meeting where we talk about it. And it's very unfortunate. I go to you guys hear me talk about the makerspace all the time. I go to the library and I enjoy all of it. I have young kiddos. I understand that it is something that is important to the city, but I also do not want to lose my 24-hour police coverage. If someone breaks into my home at 3 a.m., I want to know that that police officer is going to show up at my house. That is my number one priority as a city councilor. So safety for the city and keeping our law enforcement strong. So I will always go to battle for that.
I will agree with you. I would say even stronger than what you're saying. But the big flagpole, one of the flags for our city, and what makes the city grow is a good library. And that was cut off, and I was not even involved. I found that out from the library. So if the council is discussing things and I'm not in it, I'd like the city to know.
It's gonna happen. We're gonna discuss it at the budget committee
Yep.
next week.
So
That didn't get put on the paper because it wasn't done before.
It's in the budget binder. Did you get your budget committee
Yeah.
binder? It's in there.
I know that.
Okay, so we'll be discussing this further. You have, go ahead, it's your.
I'm sorry, I know. I feel very passionately about this topic, and I'm willing to, again, talk to people about it. I'm open book, call me, let's talk. I've reached out to our chief. Man, this guy can write books on why this needs to happen. He has so much information and he's open to talk about it. And we have a limited budget. How many times has the mayor said this, We're all kind of fighting and, scratching at the walls here to do what we need to do that's best for the city. And everyone has a different opinion about what that looks like, and this is mine. So that's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilman Blake.
So I believe that the staff did what we would expect of them to look at numbers, look at items and present us with a budget, proposed budget. And I believe that that was done in a forthright manner. I had the opportunity, and I believe other councilors did, before the budget came out, to have a discussion with John and Matt to get that information about what we're looking at. I wholly support aspects of the budget, including commitment to public safety. I am disturbed or troubled that we might not have a youth librarian, but I also am, I've been spending my time since I've seen this budget, and I will continue to do that the coming weeks, coming week, right? The coming week, 8 days, to look at the budget. It might be difficult, but I'm trying to find a way that we can do both. To additional officers and to fill the youth librarian position. And that's strongly motivated by the fact, as a one of the reasons we moved to St. Helens, my wife and I 30 years ago, was that there's a public library. I remember my son, when he was I think 4 years old or something like that, opened to haul books from the old library to the new library. So, that obviously motivates me, but also as a classroom teacher, that the devastation that these last 2 years of COVID, the impact it has had on our children, and the severe impact it has on my colleagues throughout the nation, but throughout the district, who our children are hurting. And we are offering recreational opportunities and all, but I also think that the library can continue to be part of that. So that's what I'm looking at, and it's a discussion I hope we have. I know that we will have a discussion about it and looking at ways, and some hard discussion. But I believe our professional staff did not do anything with the intent to undermine library services. They did what we have asked them to do, to look at the budget, look at services, what's in our master plans, and come back with a proposed budget. Function of the budget committee, which includes 5 citizens and 5 council members, will look at that. And we have the ability to change and to be public. And I encourage everyone to speak out. Getting the emails. Come give your public comment. This is what we're supposed to be doing as a community. So I believe that we have been open and continue to be open about this. I finished my cert training, my wife and I graduated.
Congratulations.
I was gonna wear my little green helmet. So proud to be a member of the community emergency response team. Unfortunately, because of the budget committee meeting, I am not able to attend the traffic control training that is required. So my wife is attending, so I will not be able to assist with traffic control during Halloween Town or whatever. But anyway, my wife and I, it's a truly fantastic experience. I really recommend anybody to take this community emergency response training. It's transformational. Again, a final comment is about the tourism. I hope this is the last thing I have to say about it. A year ago, 13 months ago, we had a public forum at the Recreation Department, whose only intent was to discuss tourism. And at that meeting, the tone was set not by the council, but by individuals who thought that we were out to get to occur. And that characterized the discussion and has created issues. And a year ago, in April, we did ask for the contract. And for various reasons, what are we at? We're 13 months later, but that's what we asked for a year ago. In that year, if you go back and listen to public comment, and yes, the council has a number of times been very heated on a number of other issues and things, but I think if you listen to public comment, the pejorative and accusatory and holier than thou attitudes that were presented at that about what our intent was, and it proved to be an obstacle to continue to move forward. I'm finally glad that we are there. I speak for myself. 1 year ago in April, all we wanted, a discussion about how the city's doing this, do we need to do the contract, we're there. So I'm done with that, let's move forward, contract, let's move forward. But I do not accept responsibility or that the council alone is responsible or that staff is alone responsible. I would like to thank Steve. I'd like to thank Jane Garcia. I'd like to thank Stephanie. I'd like to thank Tina, who in this year took the time to reach out to talk. Very few people who spoke publicly to deride us, even with direct input. I'm still waiting for the phone call, Mr. Preheim. Told you a year ago, you got my number, call me. So again, I do appreciate those of you who did reach out and had discussions. I think you found in the discussions that we can move ahead and we will move ahead. So yay, got a contract, 18 months, not 6 months. And a position for us to continue to grow tourism, to grow as a city.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to thank both Jessica and Patrick for noting that they had the ability to talk with staff about budgeting. I have not had word one with staff. I have not been notified and asked. I just want to make that public. So our conversation of how much who or what, I never had that opportunity.
So I just know that in this council meeting, we directed staff to find us 2 positions there. At the police department, about probably 2.5 months ago. I think when we were presented, when they wanted 5, we said, we're looking like 2.
I wanted more, but.
So, and I think
I'm not saying what they're saying,
And it's
is good
just-
or bad, I'm just saying, I didn't have the opportunity to
it's just.
provide for the library,
It's
that's
just a
what I'm saying.
hypothetical, it's just a hypothetical, like Council Berkeley said, it's all, do both. Well, we're gonna talk about it, we don't know, we'll see.
Well, I haven't had a chance as they have, which we're
No,
continuing.
No, so what I hear, I think you're mishearing that what they're saying, they're not saying they've actually been working with staff, they say the staff proposed a budget that shows us, and it was given to us a month ago, correct? Showing that was not there, so. Okay, so I'm just gonna go ahead and do my report. Don't have a lot, I wasn't gonna share a lot, because I'm grieving, my cousin Jim passed away, and he's a good man, and way too early, 56. And that we'll be doing something in the future for a type of memorial. He did not want a funeral, he was very specific on that. So I've been sad and kind of deal with family, but then always balance, right? Always balance. That's my life. And I just say thank you to whoever's in charge, because I ain't it. So, if our mayor contest, constantly doing these, like, we got second at state, man, we're one of these days, we're just gonna get it, right? It's always been a fourth or sixth grader, I think we might have had a 10th grader. So this year, I get this at 5:45 tonight.
Oh.
Ellie Luke, 4th grade of Yankton Arthur Academy is the first place in the poster.
And a girl,
Back to
Ellie,
state.
bring it back for St.
Back
Helens.
to state. First place essay category, Taylor Rose of Columbia County Christian School, St. Helens.
Oh, wow, two.
Okay, so now we're going into the 10th grade. So Hayden Stram, 10th grade homeschooled, he got second place. Yes,
Oh, that's awesome.
yes. So we got 2 first places at state and a second place in all categories.
Did you pay them all?
All categories. So our first place, we will be announcing that they actually are gonna be able to come down and stay at Agate Beach down in Newport for the mayor's conference. Yeah, $500. We'll put more on this.
Yeah.
I was just like, I couldn't believe it. I've been telling these kids, one of these years we're gonna get them, we will get. We did.
Wow.
I'm like, holy cow, so.
Nice,
And that's all I have to report on.
that's great.
That's a good note to end on.
Yep. Yes.